So welcome everybody. Today we are going to be talking a little bit about a relatively, well, I would say a very interesting subject actually, being print infrastructure. For that we have with us, or we will be having with us, Natalie Wadley. That means that we are going to have a brief introduction about the company of ChangeMaker 3D, about print infrastructure itself, what it is, maybe a little bit of a touch up on the material development. We will also be talking about our cooperation together because we have been working together with changemakers for a few years at this point actually. And of course at the end there will be time for questions and answers and just to close things up with all of you. Okay. So for ChangeMaker 3D, they have been I'm not entirely sure how you meant this, but we have been with them since 2007. They have started in 2017, working on reducing of carbon footprint by using 3D concrete printing. As a result of that, they have developed their print infrastructure, the Print Society, and they have recently, actually in 2022, been the best 3D concrete printing company in the UK, and I'm quite sure that they will continue to be doing so for a few years to come. So that should be really good to watch. And for that, we are going to get on stage with us Natalie Wadley herself, the CEO of ChangeMaker 3D. Let's bring her on.
Hello, everyone. Good to meet you.
Hi, hello, Natalie. Welcome. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe?
Yeah, it's good to meet everybody. I'm Natalie Wadley, as Mark has said, and I am co-founder of ChangeMaker 3D. So myself and my husband, Luke Wadley, we joined together in 2017 to start ChangeMaker 3D because we felt and still feel very passionate about the technology, the 3D concrete printing opportunity for both doing good for society in terms of building homes, creating skills and jobs, but also having a print infrastructure offer for utilities which can help reduce carbon. So our relationship with SIB has really helped us to demonstrate this in the UK. And we've been able to then develop our own offering around print infrastructure, which I can tell you a little bit more about.
All right. That sounds very good indeed. Yeah, let's proceed, I would say. Okay. So the first poll in order to get started, for those of you who are in this webinar, are you familiar or have you been familiar with ChangeMaker 3D since before this webinar or maybe going into this for the first time? So let's give it a minute for people to start answering. Yeah, we're getting some answers in quite quick actually. So there's a lot of people here who are new faces.
Good.
That's always good to see, indeed.
Yeah.
Right. So for the majority, indeed, unfamiliar actually with changemakers. So that means that especially this subject of print infrastructure should be quite intriguing for everyone.
Great. Okay. Well, our journey over the past 5 or 6 years has been very much focused in the UK, but we've also been able to expand our network out through joining the ISO committee for additive manufacturing and construction. So that gave us an opportunity to connect with and learn lots about what else is happening globally. And, you know, we recognise that globally the housing opportunity is massive and is really advancing well. And we did start with housing in the UK on our own journey. We started that with SIBA and, you know, wanted to very much look at an affordable housing solution for the UK. We got quite far along that journey in 2018, 2019. Yeah. But then really struggled with COVID and the housing sector in the UK had to, you know, basically just prioritise on the pandemic, which is absolutely fine and as it should be. But that gave us a bit of a crossroads. We needed to then look at, well, okay, how else do we now take this forward? And it was with our advisory board who recommended that we look at the UK infrastructure space, so rail, road, water, clean energy, because they have such a diverse range of products that need producing, and also they have a massive productivity and carbon requirement as well. So we decided to do that, and we were very fortunate that we entered the UK water and the UK rail industry almost at the same time. And that gave us access to innovation funding to then prove and demonstrate the potential for permanent structures like you can see on the screen. You can see the water chamber there that Siebert helped print over in Holland, because we had the travel restrictions and things at the time during COVID. And this was a UK first. So it was really, really, exciting for both us as a company, but also the UK water industry, to learn how we can make efficiencies with very, very common and very required assets. So that really gave us a good opportunity to connect with water companies like United Utilities, who, for those of you that may or may not be in the UK, they are one of the largest water companies in England, and they are positioned in the northwest of England. So they have about 7 million customers, and they really want to look at decarbonising for their customers and for the UK as a whole. So our relationship has continued with them, and we can talk a little bit about some of the work we're going to do later on this year with them. But we've also been able to do some work with High Speed 2, which for some of you may or may not be familiar with that. It's one of the largest, if not the largest, rail project in Europe. And it's to extend out a high-speed rail from London up into the mid part of England, so maybe around sort of the Birmingham area, Crewe, and maybe up into Manchester potentially. But I think that's still being decided at the minute. Opportunity to go with Mark and the team in 2022, back end of 22.
Yeah, early.
I know, so quick to go out. It's so quick to go out onto a high-speed 2 rail construction site, which again was really pushing the boundaries for taking the robotics and the technology out into a live site, which is very, very complex. It really is one of the hardest sites to get onto in the UK from a safety and a process point of view. It really does push boundaries. So we were able to learn a lot about how to integrate the robotics, the technology, but also think about safety and think about where we can add value to to the products that are being designed. Now for rail, they have a different risk profile in the UK, so they were looking at temporary products, things like retaining walls, and that's where we focused a lot of our printing and our design, but with the intention of being able to prove and de-risk and then move into permanent structures as well. And as we were going through this journey over the last 2 or 3 years, myself and Luke and the team, we were really wanting to give it an identity. What is this thing that we're, beyond just the individual projects, what are we creating? And that's where Printfrastructure came from. It's actually an end-to-end 3D solution, whether it's designing or building or maybe even maintaining in the future. It's being able to provide those solutions into the UK customers. And Printfrastructure has then become the trademark from which we can then deliver projects. And that's worked really well for us. It's although it's not a word that existed a couple of years ago, actually it's landed really well with UK customers. They are talking more and more about Printfrastructure and how they can how they can make use of it in their supply chain. Yeah. And it's also how we're then scaling up by having more operational delivery in the UK through Printfrastructure hubs. So that's part of our delivery model as well. And we see that there's a significant growth opportunity in the UK infrastructure space. And our aspiration would be that by printing at scale, we can help to remove 5% of the carbon in the concrete provision of the UK infrastructure.
I think that's a very good, very broad explanation. It's a very catchy term, I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it's because as you know, Mark, we're we don't develop the robots or the materials. We're integrators of the solutions like yourselves that you create, and we needed to make sense of that for people, because they would be saying to us, well, do you own the robot, or do you own the material, or what are you? And once we could explain that we're actually building infrastructure and we're integrators of the technology, that just made so much more sense, both to us and everybody else.
Yeah, it's a very good cooperation, I would say.
It is. It works really well. And, Mark, you were on the HS2 site with us. I mean, would you like to share some of your experience of being on the first on-site print in the UK for rail? Because it was very challenging, but very kind of an exciting opportunity as well.
Absolutely. Yes, it was indeed very challenging. Also from point of view of like trying to get such a system indeed on the right side, well, on site in general. But also the processes involved for ourselves, as well, we are normally basically the tech provider behind everything, which means that on the construction side itself, there was just a lot of process steps involved before we, as persons, were even allowed to get on site. A lot of safety rules and regulations we would need to comply with, which we, within the Netherlands, for example, or in other sites around the world, haven't really used quite often, or at least not to that extent. So it was a very interesting process as well, and project in the regard of just trying to see and figure out how more traditional companies like an HS2, who has a very big reputation from just, a large background basically, how they look against innovation, and also just, having a few general people who wouldn't normally be on such a site, like trying to get them to see their way of thinking, but also being open to the discussion of, okay, but this works traditionally, but for how we need to apply things, they may not always be sufficient, or we need to rethink these things, or come and see, feel it, work with it, and try to see also where we are coming from. Which I think resulted in a very interesting relationship between all of the parties involved. And I had a good time, actually.
Good. I think it was, and I think, as you say, where perhaps in the UK we can showcase is around sort of learning from the safety requirements that are kind of set out on a UK site, and looking at the human robotics interface as well. I think that's a really exciting area that we can learn from in the UK.
I think that's a global challenge indeed. It's a very up and coming technique, but it's also very new, which means that there's a lot of people being quite hesitant about how to apply this thing and keep it safe, which is something that we need to do. It has to be safe in order to actually be operated and implemented on the scale, like such as an HS2 build site.
Yeah, exactly. And I think kind of the global network, I know, like with the ISO standard, that the safety element, is underpinning the quality management of that as well. So I think there's a lot further to go, but I think collectively, the sort of 3D community is really taking it on and wanting to demonstrate that, we recognize it and we take it seriously as well.
Absolutely. All right, so we have another little poll coming up here. Where do you think are the biggest opportunities for 3D printing infrastructure or infrastructure? So let's see if we can get some answers in here. So we have water, roads, rails, and other. I see a few people answering with other. For those of you who are, I'm very intrigued to see what you think.
Yeah, same. Yeah, and of course, this is obviously we're focusing just on the UK, but we've got people from outside of the UK on the webinar as well. So really interested in their perspective of, where it can add value in other countries as well.
Yeah, from earlier in the webinar, indeed, we had Quincy come in with the affordable housing for Atlanta and an alternative to container homes, which I can definitely see as well. So
absolutely. Yeah.
feel free to provide all of your inputs.
Got housing. Yeah, shoreline and flood defence. Yeah, I think I would agree with that. Particularly with kind of like the climate uncertainty. I think we had like predictable. We had a lot of predictable weather patterns that maybe are less predictable now.
Yeah, we can indeed see artificial reefs, for example, which also have been done quite a few in recent times.
Yeah, well, you yourselves have done this, and you've got, is it Kind Designs in the States?
Yeah, they indeed are also doing similar things. To artificial reefs, I believe, and I could be mistaken actually, they're also doing the shore side and flood defenses.
Yeah, I know they're doing something.
Basically trying to combine the two, I believe.
I think it's brilliant. I mean, we're an island, so there's plenty of opportunity for us to be doing reefs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But indeed, everything does seem to hook a little bit into border housing, and maybe in the future as well. But it seems to hook a bit into that water aspect predominantly.
Yeah, and consistent standards as well. I think Gary's put on there. Yeah, and some urban landscaping. Yeah, I think there's sort of concepts that come up online where people have done really, really creative landscapes or like placemaking, and I just love it. I think it, and it's something that that's what kind of would plug into our print society vision as well, where we're enabling communities to design and print and get to know their own kind of like their own community.
Yeah, for sure. And it's one of the main attractive pools, I believe, into 3D concrete printing is that freeform modeling, which landscaping especially provides a lot of opportunity and solutions as well.
Yeah, it does. And not everything, as we see the market evolve, not everybody's going to be in, civil provision, into the water. There are going to be different levels where there are different market entry points as well.
Absolutely. Okay. We have a bit of a subject as well about material development. Looking back at a little bit of history, like one of the first projects we did, I'm not entirely sure if I can say it, but it was around Newcastle. Where we were already working together for a little bit prior to that, but that's where things really started to kick off. And when we first got the printer into the UK, that sort of thing. Could you tell a little bit about that, maybe?
Yeah, so the funding that we were given from HS2 was then delivered, as you know, Mark, in partnership with one of their main contractors, which is SCS JV, and that's a combination of some of the larger tier ones in the UK, sort of Skanska and Costain and Strabag. So what we were able to do with them at the beginning of 2022 was to do a kind of like an off-site sort of test run, if you like, and that was the provision that we were given in Newcastle, which is in the northeast of the UK, and we were given access to a unit where we could go in and set up a Printfrastructure hub, and we turned it around in a week, and that was where we were able to work with yourselves to do very practical things like unload the robot, work out where everything needs to be in that space, bring people in as well. We had lots and lots of visitors that were really keen to see, okay, how does this work? Not just from a design or a safety point of view, but also, like you say, from a materials and an innovation point of view. And that was the week where we were able to plan for and develop the process that then would give us the sign off to go out onto formally onto a HS2 site. So within that week, it was also we also incorporated graphene printing take the easy route. We definitely threw
Definitely
everything.
not, no.
And we were able to.
Logistical challenge as well, yes.
It was a logistical challenge. But we were able to, with the knowledge of your team, you know, and your print technicians with the mixing station, we were able to get sort of graphene added in real time into some of the walls, which for me was just, you know, an amazing material development opportunity. Again, sort of something that HS2 were really keen to help fund and show that we could try and test it, even though it's like very, very early days for that kind of integration of materials. And then those walls, all of the walls that we printed at Newcastle, we were able to take to the BRE, which is a large testing institution. Globally they work, but they're based in the UK. And they were able to do a whole variety of testing, not just on the material, but on the walls as well. And they were able to help inform the design process that we then needed to take forward with SCS and HS2 on to getting the design standards right for HS2 assets.
It's a very good proof of concept on multiple fronts, I would say.
Really good proof, yeah, and it's needed. You know, I think we've talked a little bit about like the business case for this webinar, and I suppose what people maybe that are listening in, it really does need to be robustly proved and demonstrated if we're going to create the kind of confidence and change in the industry that that is needed. The UK is an amazing place to do business, but also a very difficult place because you have to fall in with the standards and expectations, quite rightly, but you have to then go in with your eyes wide open about how long that's going to take and about the level of engagement that we need.
Yeah, because these are processes that, well, they take years to really get right, to be fair.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. There's a few questions in on the chat. Do we want to pick this now or at the end?
Yeah, in my opinion, it's fine to have them tackled right away. I always try to have a bit of a more interactive scenario going on there. If that's also fine by you, I think the first question there indeed is quite extensive already about the roadmap to accreditation from the BRE.
Yeah, so we didn't get a full roadmap to accreditation. We focused on material, sort of product and material testing around sort of fire safety, hard and soft impact testing on the products. But yeah, I mean, the BRE are kind of there as and when we need to pick back up with them. I think at the time, it was kind of quite a base level to just make sure that the product itself was going to do what we had designed it to do. I don't know if that answers your question fully or not.
I would think so, indeed, yes. Like I said, these things normally take years, especially with companies that are very rooted within their own traditional standards and methods of testing, and then coming in with a completely new type of technology means that they, in some cases, also need to revise or reconsider the way they are testing and applying their knowledge too.
That's right. Yeah. And I think what was helpful is that CEBO have already got a good data set for your own UCAS accreditations for material. We were able to use that to inform our design standards, and then we were able to test those assumptions with the BRE. So those 3 steps worked quite nicely, and it is a long road, Nigel, I would agree.
Yeah.
Perhaps we can do things to make it a slightly shorter road, would be helpful for those of us trying to disrupt the industry, but we'll see.
Yeah. All right, very good. And then we have Egils here, and sorry if I mispronounce things, but there you go. If we can expand a little bit about the implementation of graphene additive and the benefits thereof.
Yeah, so we've used a few different graphene suppliers across the project. We've wanted to, again, not sort of be agnostic about the graphene itself, but it's still very, very early indication, I would say. And some of the test results are still kind of under NDA with the client. But what we have been able to see is that there's potential for benefits around sort of anti-corrosion, I think. So where perhaps the graphene might help to just protect maybe some internal reinforcement, there's a lot more testing that would need to be done to actually draw that as a conclusive benefit. But some of the testing we were able to do did indicate that. And I think that with some of the graphene sort of claims around strength and things, I think we remain to be convinced on that. I think there are strength gains, but I don't think they go as far as to start removing traditional reinforcement. Certainly not from what we'd seen. And I think we kind of threw that challenge back out to the graphene industry to sort of validate its position on that.
So I think we can say that we have a few interesting preliminary results, but it's too early to really give conclusions.
Exactly. Yeah, it was absolutely the right kind of combination of materials. It's a very interesting combination, but as you say, kind of interesting preliminary, but more work to be done.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. And it was also quite fun thought experiment for us to try and work around. Okay, so we have a normal procedure on working with our material. How do we actually properly start applying graphene into it?
Exactly.
Without messing up the rest of what we work with.
Yeah, exactly. Did it clog up the robot? No, it didn't. Great.
Luckily not. Yes. It's very very fun experiment for us as well.
Yeah, great. And this is why it's good to collaborate, isn't it? Because we're all learning in that moment.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's. We have one more question about if we have explored BFRP rebar. Now, I do need to be completely honest, and I'm not entirely sure about the terminology there.
No, it's not basalt, is it? Are you? Yeah. Okay.
Right. Yeah, basalt. Okay.
It is basalt. Yeah. We are exploring that, and really keen to. So again, be open to kind of sort of learning more about anything you're aware of on that as well. But yeah, that's definitely on our radar.
All right. From our point of well, at least from a CBS standpoint, I don't think we've done any type of exploring there yet, but I'm not on the materials team. I just work with material to that extent. So maybe in the future I will get a project under my nose asking if I can start mixing in some BFRP rebar. Who knows?
Might be us. Mark.
Yeah, who knows? Looking forward to it already.
Might be us. Yeah, watch this space.
Okay, so we have the next little poll here. What do you believe should be the next development in 3D concrete printing material? It's all right. It's almost like we knew this would happen.
So do we need to do
just an open question? All right, so you just want people to answer.
I see. We just want people to...
all right, that makes sense. So just an open question for everyone coming in. Feel free to put your answers into the chat. Ooh, fiberglass reinforcement. That is something we have worked with.
Carbon neutral mixtures. Yeah, that's interesting. And fiberglass.
Yeah. Recycling materials here. Very good one.
Yeah. Geopolymers. Yeah.
Ja. Ik had al zo'n idee. Ooh, aerogels.
On here, we're just all busy reading the chat, aren't we?
Yeah.
This is really good. Yeah, I think just picking up on the costed case studies. This is something we've really tried to do as well. I know both with United Utilities and with HS2 really doing like a cost, not just a cost comparison, but sort of a value for money in terms of carbon and productivity as well. So kind of looking holistically at where the benefits are for the application of the technology. Yeah.
Yep.
Glass pearls that can help with insulin. That's interesting.
Glass pearls, yeah. It's fun to read these answers. We have tried a few of these in the past, actually.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, like the fiberglass. We actually had a project with Cebus for artificial reefs where they insisted that we indeed use fiberglass to reinforce everything.
Was it successful?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And recycled material is a reoccurring one.
Yeah, and I think that would be something to discuss with your material partner, wouldn't it? About whether or not.
Yes, absolutely. We've had a few clients indeed who are actually already actively trying to work it into their material development as well. Same, for example, with the geopolymers. We have a party in Texas, Hive 3D, which is working with a geopolymer-based material as well.
Yeah.
So, some very good answers, I would say.
Right. Yeah, Hive have got isn't that recycled as well?
I believe so, but I'm not 100% on it. I'm 99%, so I think so, but I could be mistaken. Definitely geopolymer though.
Yeah.
All right, so we've already hinted at it a little bit, but we have had quite a few of joint projects together. Some of them printed directly in the Netherlands, some of them on site with you guys right there. Actually, in the Netherlands, a little bit of printing while you just came to visit, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, we get to come over to you rather than bring the robot.
Very as well, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right. We're not stopping here. We've got some exciting projects already underway in 2024. So one at the moment, which is our next one to be printed with yourselves, is a 3D toilet pod for the rail industry, but it could be transferred into other sectors, but that's where it's come out from through our work with Transport for Wales. And we've been really looking at how to have a self-sustaining toilet pod. So using kind of, self-sustaining energy and rainwater harvesting, and how far can we go with kind of an off-grid pod solution, which is really exciting, because for us, it's the first building we've been able to do. And it takes us back to kind of, some of the learning we want to do around housing. So this is a really good test case for lots of reasons, because it's also a permanent structure in the rail sector. So again, it helps us to just move that risk dial along a little bit as well. And then in the water sector, with some funding from Ofwat, who are a UK water regulator, they have funded, excuse me, they funded our work to continue with United Utilities and Scottish Water, and to actually then take a full-scale printfrastructure hub to one of their sites and print a whole range of assets. So I think somebody talked about like a factory in a box. So that's the type of model that we're going to be demonstrating in the spring, and being able to sort of really push out into where we can, how we can bring more products into the water sector. And obviously, and as we continue as well, the relationship with HS2, we just continue to work to try and support them wherever we can, really.
Yeah, it's a very good partnership to have going on with them. Also, just in terms of credibility for 3D concrete printing as a whole, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The guys you need to convince me in Scotland. Okay, well, definitely we've got Scottish Water in our project, so we've got one champion in Scotland. We can work to raise the profile for others as well.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think for us it's we are a startup in the sense that we've not had government or private investment into our business. We've bootstrapped our business to this point, and the flexibility of working with SciB as our delivery partners on projects has really helped us to do that. It's helped us to just keep our overheads low and keep proving the technology to the point where we now can take on our own robots and our own print team, which we're really, really excited to do this year.
Yeah, looking forward to that as well.
Yeah.
Good to need to set up some training and that sort of stuff.
100%. I can't wait to learn how to use the robot.
Yeah, it should be a fun time indeed.
Yeah, it will. But I think it's that collaborative approach, and I know that others in the 3D space, 3D sector, you know, we have to come together to develop this, because the whole world needs convincing of it. So it's that collective voice that is really, you know, now I believe starting to really get the message across to not just, you know, infrastructure, but also housing globally. As I said before, I think there's huge value in the work that's happening there. And Luke and I can't wait to get back to our original mission of supporting people to print their own homes and reduce poverty. So, you know, this is a fantastic journey that we're on, albeit hard. And, you know, your own company, you know how difficult it is to really, you know, drive this forward. But it's a really exciting, I think we're in an exciting time for the technology to now be adopted.
For sure, indeed, yes. I think another good question that came in is actually also a little bit about convincing, I guess, is if there is a UK site that could be visited.
So the intention is that we're going to have our own print infrastructure hub permanently set up. That's something we're working on for later into this year. And then in between time, we're going to have temporary hubs and temporary print facilities, which if people are interested in visiting those, then of course we'll try and accommodate that. We've also got access to the toilet pod location, which is much easier for people to access. So we would definitely welcome people to come and see that and have a talk with us. That's in Dudley in the West Midlands in the UK.
Yeah, and I think maybe further on in the future, we have done, for example, together with you guys, the demos throughout the week in Newcastle as well. So maybe there will be other opportunities like that again.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I think the biggest thing now is for us is to be able to demonstrate that there's a print capability in the UK with us that we can deliver on. I think we're hearing that message from our customers that they are excited about what we can start to offer in the supply chain.
Exactly, yes. And if we have, if you are partnered with any 3D printing companies in the US?
So we haven't partnered with anybody in the US as yet. As I said, we've been very focused on the UK, and you know, our focus has been on helping to de-risk the technology in the UK at the moment.
Yeah. From Siba's point, yes, we do have a few clients in the US, quite a few actually. I believe some of them have been on webinars, or maybe will be in the future. So, all right.
There's a lot happening in the US. I mean, it's a good market. It's a place, you know, I think typically the US has always been about 3 or 4 years ahead of the UK market. So we watch the US quite closely to see what they're developing and then what we think will be coming into our market as well. So it's a really exciting space, and hopefully we can share some of our print infrastructure approach as well, and sort of complement the housing development that's been happening globally, so we can end up with proper print cities, you know.
Absolutely, yes. I think that is one of the main pulls really about the entire community of 3D concrete printing, is that it's an excellent platform to share knowledge and even just models directly, for example, and things you've learned from printing on site and working with machines and that sort of thing, how to implement it.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that really helped us at the back end of last year was, as a company, we were actually selected to be featured in a book about King Charles III to commemorate his 75th birthday. And they recognised 75 sustainable businesses across the UK and Commonwealth. And so we've been able to then utilise the profile that's given us, but also the royal logo. So that's an incredible win for not just for us, but for 3D printing. I think that was really one to celebrate, and we want to be able to now use that kind of platform to talk more about the sustainable benefits that are being recognised at a really, you know, very senior level, which is amazing.
Yeah, right. jump into the next poll here. Yeah, indeed, we can clap for that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So we have a next little poll here. What do you think is the most promising ChangeMaker 3D project and why? So it's an open question again, so answers can go into the chat.
Maybe quick recap of the different projects.
Yeah, so the projects are across water retaining structures for the water industry, retaining walls and toilet pods for the rail sector.
Yep. I think it's also a relatively question to answer, but that is a very good one indeed. First project, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. You really do learn a lot.
Can't really argue with that, to be fair.
No, exactly. And I think, yeah, the one that costs less is most yeah, I think that you're right. Yeah. And I think that the cost less point is really interesting because it really depends on, I think one of the key things we're seeing is the benefit of whether it's on-site or off-site printing, you know, and there might be costs which are somewhere else in the program. For example, we might be able to print on site and you might not need as many cranes or as many lifting plant machinery sat there or as many people doing things. So it's really looking quite broadly at where the cost saving is as well. It may not be directly in the thing you're printing. It may be in what you're enabling holistically.
Yes, exactly. Even just transportation costs as well, and also limitations potentially in how large of an object you can print, and still have it being shipped into a container, basically. So yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a lot revolving around the print that would end up in costing less potentially.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Integrated plumbing features, yeah.
I think that's a really interesting point about like value engineering in the pod and the way that you can 3D print to maximize that. If that's what you mean about integrated plumbing, then yeah, it's definitely it's been a really interesting design project for us because you also want to create something that's quite not, you know, it's nice aesthetically as well to look at.
For sure, indeed, yeah. It's one of the challenges we face as well, trying to work on the new designs on how to, well, just like small housing and that sort of thing, how we can integrate MEPs in general, not just plumbing. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And it allows you to think, it allows you to do things, as we said all the way through, differently, because you can configure the wall really, you know, in any way, really, from as long as structurally you can support it. And that's been really exciting from the pod point of view. And I think actually, you know, from our perspective, if you take out the toilet element, it's a pod for many uses. You know, if you made it a little bit bigger, it's a homeless pod. You know, there's lots of flexibility with the pod, and I'm really excited. It's going to be finished around the end of April, so really excited to share that one.
Yeah, and even just like open up one of the sites, and you can make a small kiosk out of it, for example. So there's different types of opportunities for sure.
Yeah. And I think I think Nigel's picked up on the cost of infrastructure. I think that's a really, really good point about you know, in some of the projects we've been able to analyze, it's the cost of the temporary works is more than the cost of the permanent works. And it's, you know, I think that's a hidden benefit that hopefully we've been trying to unlock a little bit as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the last ones you pointed out, the change of design on the fly if necessary. Well, people on construction sites may be familiar with it, but there's always going to be like rebar sticking up out of a place where it shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
Change the design around a little bit and no problem, we'll just print right around it. Yeah.
I think that's a good question about kind of team members. I mean, from your point of view, Mark, how have you recruited into cyber? Because you've got a really diverse group of people, haven't you, with lots of different backgrounds.
For sure. I mean, my own background is actually in game design of all things. So that's looking back at it, it makes a little bit of sense in a aspect that, drawing, 3D modeling and programming, which at the time was needed because we had a very small team. And when I joined CIBA, we had, like a handful of employees, basically. So everyone needed to be quite diverse in their knowledge already and trying to apply it. What we are looking for within our own team, it's indeed a very big variety in backgrounds. Nowadays, we are a bit more focused. So we have a certain support team having more operational background knowledge. Starting out in that team means that you have either experience in a technical field or more in a support unit type of field, so customer service, or we have architects, we have construction engineers. So it goes all over the place from having a more dedicated background and using the different teams to get to where you need to go. Eventually, meaning that, creating not only just the technology, but also creating the business case around it to make sure that the technology we provide can actually be used to make a profit and make sure that we can keep on moving everything forward for a sustainable future and just innovation in general. But as for the team members needed to form the team,
I think we're
to be fair.
We're looking for the same level of diversity in our team as well. A big push for us is women into construction. That's something clearly I'm very passionate about, and being able to bring more women into our industry because this is a digital technology, because it's different. It will appeal to people, not only women but other underrepresented groups as well. It will appeal to people differently, and young people coming into the industry who can construct things with robots. It's really cool, and we're hoping that will continue to be a positive for an industry which does in the UK does have an aging workforce. We know that there are gaps going to be coming up right at the time when we've got lots of major infrastructure projects going on, and the robots can help plug the gap, but we've got to have people passionate to be involved with designing and operating around them.
Yeah, and that is definitely something that we actually see looking at teams in general that are being trained to use these systems. They tend to be on the young side of things with a diverse background as well, but also all types of cultural levels, hierarchy levels, background knowledge, studies where they came from. It's a lot. A whole generation of Minecraft engineers on its way. Yeah.
And just to confirm, I can see someone just in the chat. We do have structural engineers and architects, and also civil engineers across water and rail. And we've also got people like myself who are non-construction based. And actually, I think that's quite a good mix, because I perhaps don't have the assumptions that maybe I would have if I'd worked in construction for years. So I'm able to ask the questions about why do we do things like this. So I think that mix of thinking is really good. And I can also see first printer, will it be crawler or gantry? I'd like both. I can't choose. I think they've both got their place. Probably just with the development of time, we would go with a crawler, but see huge potential in the gantry as well.
Yeah, it definitely really comes down to what you intend to be printing and also the strategy you would like to apply with it. Both have definite pros and cons for sure.
Yeah, there are pros and cons.
Let's see. Did we miss any of them?
Don't think so.
All right. All right. So indeed, thank you all for attending, especially to you, Natalie. It was very good to have you with us. Yeah. So what's next? Is that something?
That's it.
That's it? Okay, so what's next? Yeah, hopefully in the future we have more webinars, maybe again with Natalie, who knows? Looking forward to it already. For contact, we have a contact form which you can find on our website. And the next webinar indeed will be with Arcom Technologies on April 30th at 4 o'clock Central European time.
Brilliant.
So
Thank you very much.
I'm sure there will be socials posted and everything prior to then. So thank you again, Natalie.
No problem. Thanks for having us. It's great chat on the people that have taken the time to join. Really value everyone's comments and thoughts. And we'll see you next week because we're heading over for more printing with you guys. So yeah, see you next week.
Yes. See you next week indeed. Looking forward.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. Talk to you again very soon.
Bye-bye.
And thanks to everyone in chat as well. Hopefully we see you around for the next webinar.